Welcome to Connections and Conversations, an advocacy arena podcast, working to increase civic engagement and strengthen our communities. Welcome to Connections and Conversations. I am so happy to be here today with a brilliant engineer and businesswoman doing important work in her community to address the housing crisis. So let's say hello to Cynthia Williams. Welcome, Cynthia. So glad to have you with us today. I met Cynthia online, so I just would like for you to say hello to folks and give them a little bit of your background on your work and your education experience.
Hi, Dee. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Hi.
As you indicated, my name is Cynthia Williams, and I'm currently living in North Carolina. My background is that I'm an engineer by trade and focusing mostly on systems design and systems research.
Okay.
I also have an MBA from one of the Ivy League schools, Cornell University, and I worked many, many years in corporate America, working in the automotive industry, and then I transitioned into the healthcare IT industry. And through all of that, spent some time also working in the international, global arena and focused primarily on managing engineering teams, managing software developer teams, working in the STEM world, and then most recently moving into community work around affordable housing, basically helping my community with the issue of addressing the lack of affordable housing in Durham, North Carolina.
Let's talk a little bit about that because that is a real growing crisis, like nationally and internationally, because you're a woman who is tapped into geopolitical issues. So I know you had mentioned to me a program organization that you chaired there in North Carolina. Can you tell me a little bit about, I think you called it CAT, and tell me what the acronym stands for?
Yes, the organization's acronym is CAT, C-A-H-T, and the acronym stands for the Coalition for Affordable Housing and Transit of Durham. We have a 432-member organization that consists of about 40 to 50 organizations within that, and we focus on issues related to addressing affordable housing for our residents here in our city and our county, as well as anything related to transit that affects housing as well.
So what are some of the kinds of things that the organization or the organizations that you help do to address that? What are some of the practical things that happen?
Our organization does a variety of things. Most recently, we've been focused on tax reassessments because in our city, we have seen a great deal of growth in the real estate market, and we have a lot of people from other states that have moved into our city. And as a result, the market prices for housing has escalated to the point where long-term residents can no longer afford the houses that we have in our city. So one of the things that we're working on is the tax reassessments that are happening now. We're trying to work with the county tax administrator to make the process of appealing the tax assessments, make that more clear and more accessible for our residents, as well as advocating to our county commissioners that the tax assessments in general be somehow subsidized so that our most vulnerable residents can afford their property tax.
Okay.
And with that, the most vulnerable that we're thinking about are primarily seniors and the disabled.
I can see that. And do you feel like you're making headway? Are they listening to you and are changes being made around that? Because what you're describing sounds like the very same thing that is going on here in my city, in Nashville. I see a lot of people, a lot of new businesses, headquarters being moved here, and a lot of new people. And so they are building some things. And as you said, people are being forced out of neighborhoods that they have lived in their entire lives, for various different reasons.
Yes, we are getting a lot of cooperation from our city and our county leaders. I think primarily because we are focusing not on just purely the emotional plea of making sure that taxes are at a level that our residents can afford to stay in their homes and be able to prosper in the city. But we do a lot of evidence-based activities. So we do a lot of things with the city and county that perhaps hasn't been done in the past. For example, I mentioned that one of our most vulnerable populations are our seniors. And there's different groups of seniors. There are seniors that are lower income that tend to be in underserved, marginalized communities. And then there are actually seniors who are very prosperous, who tend to be in our more affluent parts of the city. We try to help both ends of the spectrum. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but we believe that all seniors must do well in the city for our city to thrive. And so even though we focus mostly on our lower income residents, we do also make sure that whatever we advocate for our lower end, we also make sure that it doesn't have a negative impact on the higher end as well. So right now, what we're trying to do basically is understand how much taxes are increasing. That's a mathematical equation.
That's your wheelhouse.
Yeah. It's not anything mysterious. It's a mathematical equation. So we're understanding the mathematics behind, in this example, the new tax values of the property. With that, we're trying to predict how many people will be affected to the point where they won't be able to afford their property taxes. We are taking that information into our city and county leaders so that they can understand if they need to help fund with a subsidy on the taxes, how big of a budget line item they are looking at. And then with that, we're trying to understand in a predictive mode what that means for the future in terms of how many residents will be able to stay in their homes, how many people may have to move out of their homes. What does that look like? And this is the first time I think that our city has tried to take the approach from an analytical standpoint from beginning to end. Usually we only do a part of the analysis, but we're doing it all the way from beginning to end.
That is so smart. And, hopefully other cities like mine will take a look at that because I remember, you and I met through social media and you have often been a wonderful contributor in our Monday Good Trouble chats. And I remember us having a conversation around the changes in growth in cities when businesses and things move in. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because that was so enlightening because, of course, the sale is they come, they bring revenue to the city. Oftentimes they talk about bringing the jobs. Can you give us like the real numbers on that, what that looks like?
Well, Dee, you're kind of giving a little bit of the secret sauce behind what we're doing here in my city. What we try to do and what you're referring to is we try to go out and also look at research and try to understand what is the research saying about housing, the housing market, and its impact on American citizens. So one of the things that is a big misnomer and a big thing that our city is still grappling with is when we want to diversify our economy in order to ensure jobs for our residents. The natural thing and the most political expedient thing to do is to encourage corporations to move into an area through giving them tax incentives, other things, subsidies to help them move into the area with the promise that they will also bring jobs. And the jobs typically are advertised as being jobs for the area, but they don't define it based upon who is getting the jobs. So a lot of cities are being caught blindsided. They're welcoming in these corporations, these larger companies. They're telling the public we're bringing in 100, 1,000 jobs. But what they're finding is that these jobs are actually going to people that are living outside of the area. And those jobs are then bringing those people in. And depending on which part of the country people are from, people that are moving in can actually have a lot more net worth and discretionary money than the people that are actually living in the community where the corporation is building up. For us, for example, in our community, we have a lot of people from New York, New Jersey, California, Georgia, Florida, and Texas that are moving into our area because a lot of the corporations that moved in are technology companies. And those companies are bringing in a lot of jobs, but they also are bringing in a lot of people from other technology regions to fill those jobs in our city. And when those people come, they come with more money than what our current residents have. And so they start buying up houses at an escalated price. And so, for example, just before the pandemic, the average housing price in my community was about $230,000. Today is just beneath $500,000. And long-term residents that are making $24,000, $34,000, $40,000 a year are not able to afford that. But people from the outside who came in with those tech jobs are more than capable of buying those properties at those prices.
That is the same thing I see happening here.
And so what we try to do is, and again, this is new for our city, is we try to make our city and county leaders aware of the differences in the incomes between those that are moving in and those that are already here, and how that relates to housing prices, and then how that relates to homelessness, evictions, inability of families to buy homes in our city, migration patterns out of our city, migration patterns into our city. So it's a whole analysis. It's something I don't think this city has done before.
That's amazing. And I think that a lot of cities are going to find themselves needing people like you and others looking at the changing population and growth in that manner. Because as I said, I think there are many parallels to the growth patterns in Nashville and Tennessee as they are in North Carolina and the Durham area. With that being said, I know we talked about a project that you had worked on because one of the other things that we can see is becoming part of our everyday lives and is going to have to be considered and understood is AI. Because, we have one of the AI headquarters moving in to our state. So there's going to be a lot of focus around it, and AI, of course, is just being infused into every aspect of our life. And anything like this, there has to be some wisdom applied in some of these things. And I know that you talked about an interesting project that you were involved in your city or in your state. Would you please talk a little bit about that project?
Of course. I was honored to be a part of this project, so I'm very happy to share it with you and your audience. North Carolina, one of the things that we've tried to do is we've tried, as I mentioned before, to diversify our business community in the state. We were a textile and a cigarette manufacturing state all through the 1700s, 1800s, and early 1900s. Once those two industries started to move overseas, we lost a lot of jobs and we had to switch over to technology jobs. So now parts of the state are focused on technology. And as a result, one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that North Carolina kind of stayed at the forefront of some of the advanced technologies that are happening in the world. And one of those is artificial intelligence. So the project that I was involved with was taking a look at the entire entrepreneurship ecosystem within North Carolina and replicating that in a virtual world using artificial intelligence. So what we literally did is we went out, there was a group of about 130 thought leaders from across the state representing all aspects of the entrepreneur world. We had also entrepreneurs like myself involved. And what we basically said is if we wanted to replicate how we are all connected, our network, and how all of our resources and services are connected together in a virtual platform, how could we do that? And one of our universities here suggested that we do that through artificial intelligence. So what we have done is we have basically taken all of the information that we could gather anywhere across the state around entrepreneurship, groups, organizations, government entities, marketing groups, anything that had to do with entrepreneurs. And we gathered their data in terms of what they specialized in, where they were located, who they serviced. We put all of that into a massive database. And then using artificial intelligence, we created a online virtual site. It's a portal where you can go in and you can literally type in through a chat bot a question. Who in North Carolina is related to entrepreneurs that deal with health services? And the artificial intelligence will go through and it will look at all these different websites, all these different connections, all these different networks that we have built into this platform. And it will spit out for the user or the person asking the question a complete list of all the different groups across North Carolina that are related to that specific healthcare question. And so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there are 883 assets that are in the database. These assets through artificial intelligence goes out there every single day and it checks to make sure, number one, that all 883 different groups still exist and are still operating, that no one has closed their doors or has stopped operating. And then it makes that information available in a website, virtual platform for viewing by the audience. And so we are the fourth state to do this. We are the second state to do it with regards to entrepreneurs.
Okay. And I love that. That sounds fascinating. And of course, like I said, we know that AI is part of the future for sure. It's like anything from the beginning of computers. What you get out is only going to be as good as what is put in. And as a Black woman, of course, my concern is that information about us is being put in there. So I love that you were able to be a part of this. So that tells me that we are being put in there and considered. I hope as these kinds of projects and things go on that they will all have representation of the community that, they are serving. So I'm going to keep talking to you about that because I can see a lot of these things happening here. And I know more will be going on because Musk has his headquarters here in Memphis. So let's stay in touch on that. Now, as we start to wrap up, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit of some of the things that you have done in your life. And I just wanted to ask you, just, like muse a little bit about some of the most memorable things or experiences that you've had that you would like to share. And also share with us a little bit about how, because obviously you're very involved in your community and maybe what your vision is for continuing that work in the future?
Well,
I know that's a big, big question.
It's a very good question. When I look back over my life and my career, I think there are really three things that kind of stick out to me as a Black woman and in the technical field. First is when I was a high school student, I was not given the chance to do advanced placement work as a student without fighting to get into those classes. So my peers who were not Black, if they excelled in math or science or what have you, they were automatically elevated into advanced placement courses. I, on the other hand, had to go through tests, testing, questionnaires, things that were beyond what my peers had to experience.
Kind of like poll tax.
Yeah. As a youth, that was my first real experience with fighting, advocating for myself, not just advocating for others, but advocating for myself. Because no one really teaches young people, I don't think, how to handle that when you're in the middle of it. I think we are very good at looking back at situations and being able to do 20/20 hindsight advice. But when you're a youth and this is the first time that you're being challenged about your intelligence, about what you know, and about your capabilities, I don't think that we as a community of adults, I don't think we do a great job, especially with our children of color, helping them to learn how to advocate effectively for themselves. So that's the first thing that jumps out to me, because had I not done that, I'm not sure that I would have been able to get into the engineering program that I was in. I'm not sure that being in that engineering program, I would have had the career that I had. And so it's a domino effect. If you don't get that first step right, it can really set you up to have a less than optimal opportunity in your life. The second is when I was in corporate America. Again, there was another learning about, at that time it was not given a word, but it is well known now. It's this thing called imposter syndrome. I literally had people around the world working for me. I was in charge of billion-dollar budgets. I was giving presentations to CEOs and board members of one of the largest companies in the world. And yet I felt that I wasn't fully skilled to be able to do it well. And it took a couple of mentors working with me in that role to help me understand, no, you have earned this. This is not something that was just given to you as a token type of thing. You're not a DEI mistake. Without DEI, we still would have put you in this role because you're just that smart and you're just that great and that good.
You belong here.
Yes, you belong here. And so understanding how I, again, needed to advocate for myself, but also to not deny the knowledge that I have, to not downplay what I know I do well. And if it excels beyond what everybody else in the room is at, so be it. This is not something I need to hide. So that was the second thing that I learned. And believe it or not, that kind of mindset is well respected overseas. It's actually more respected overseas than it is here in the U.S. A lot of international leaders that I worked with were very, very happy to see, once I stepped up and said, I know what I'm doing and this is how we need to do, they were more than happy to welcome me in as an equal. And that was something that I thought was surprising, given that I thought America was at the forefront of that, but I found other countries might be ahead of us in that way. And then this most recent activity that I've had with the local community, I think what I have learned in this experience is the component of compassion as it relates to being a leader. I'm very analytical in my thinking. That's the reason why I went into a lot of the STEM career activity that I did. But at the end of the day, we're all people. We all have feelings, we have emotions, we have aspirations, we have dreams, we have hopes. And learning how to be able to take something very, very analytical and bringing it into something that demonstrates compassion from a humanistic standpoint is something that I've had to recently learn. and to build my skills on. And, you would think I would have learned that through all the years that I was working in corporate America. Corporate America kind of strips out the humanity piece, because it's all about
your mission focused.
Right. You're mission focused, you're profit focused, you're revenue focused, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're working out in the community and you're working with real diehard issues where people are either living in homes or not living in homes, they're either feeding themselves well or not feeding themselves well, they're taking care of themselves health-wise or they're not, you have to start being more compassionate in how you express your concern and your solutions to these community issues, to the real human side of the equation. So I have done a lot of learning. That's the other thing I would say. Overall, my whole life, I've never stopped learning. And I would advise, or I would suggest to your audience that they truly embrace becoming lifelong learners. Because when you open yourself up to learning, the opportunities that come to you become so abundant. And you never find where you're going to end up. I mentioned working on artificial intelligence. I never would have had that experience had I not also been working out in the community, trying to get to know people, trying to understand this whole issue around affordable housing. As I became more interested in what people were doing from a compassion standpoint, word started to spread. People started to ask, who's this person named Cynthia Williams? And as a result, I was asked to participate in this artificial intelligence project. So they seem unrelated on the surface, but they are directly related. And that's one of the things that I have really, really encouraged people that I meet, and hopefully your audience today is be lifelong learners, be based in truth and facts, don't make up things, make sure you understand what data is out there, what the data is saying, but also remember that we're all humans and that as humans we must show some compassion to one another. And if we can collectively come together, we can solve any problem that's in front of us.
Oh, I love it. I think that is wonderful advice for us to close out on. And like I said, I am so grateful that you took a little time out of your day to talk to us. And I look forward to more conversations with you because you are a wealth of knowledge. And we can't do everything in this short period of time, but there are other things that I would like for you to share with a wider audience. Because as I said, folks, she's a brilliant lady, very amazing. I'm so impressed by the work that she does. And another shining example of the people that keep our community going strong. So again, thanks, Cynthia, for being here.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for listening to Connections and Conversations. This is one of many wonderful interviews that we bring to you to help connect you to a larger community of advocates and changemakers across the country. You'll get a glimpse into the various ways people are making an impact in their communities. My hope is that it will inspire you to get engaged in some small way as well. We can't all do everything, but at this moment in history, we can all do something. What are you doing? One of the things you can do is to continue to listen, subscribe, and share this Advocacy Arena podcast. You can also join and support the growing grassroots Advocacy Arena community in other ways. Join our weekly live chats hosted on Spoutable every Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe to our Substack to get great articles on important topics and exclusive access to extended interview conversations. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We've got some exciting programming lined up. And keep listening to our regular podcast episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, subscribe and give us that all-important 5-star review.